social justice and the marginalized. Students will be learning about the world's marginalized, practices of caste system, untouchability, why and when was Mandal Commission set up, who are tribal and place in the society, child labor, health of India. In many societies around the world, from the earliest times, there have been people who were forced to live on the margins or edges of society. They were the marginalized. They were not allowed to mix with the rest of society and they were discriminated against in various ways. They included slaves, people with diseases like leprosy, people who did jobs which were thought to be polluting like cleaning the sewerage, people belonging to indigenous tribes and the blacks. In India, the practice of the caste system resulted in the creation of a whole section of people who were excluded from society or marginalized. The practice of untouchability. One of the worst fallouts of the caste system was the practice of untouchability. Dalits endure segregation in housing, schools, and access to public services. They are denied access to land, forced to work in degrading conditions, and routinely abused at the hands of the police and upper caste community members who many a time enjoy the state's protection. Deep-rooted discrimination violates the rights of Dalits to even the right to have property, the freedom to practice their religion, or equal treatment before the law. The marginalized in India have been placed in various categories such as scheduled castes, SCs, scheduled tribes, STs, and other backward classes, OBC. Two acts were passed nearly 50 years ago, namely A. The Unsociability Offences Act 1955 and B. The Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. Many laws have been passed subsequently giving dignity to labor. Any offense, verbal or physical, against the socially backward people is considered punishable under the law. Reservation is provided in education and government jobs. The Mandal Commission was set up by the Indian government in 1979 to identify the socially or educationally backward segments of society and to suggest methods for adding the problem of caste discrimination. After making its study, the Commission recommended that 27% of government jobs be reserved for the social and economically backward classes. 27% was also to be reserved in all government-run institutions of higher education. This 27% was in addition to the 22.5% seats already being reserved for people belonging to the SCs and STs, thus adding up to 49.5%. The tribal people of India. The Adivasis or the tribal people are the earliest inhabitants of India and have traditionally inhabited hills, forests, and dry plateau regions. As India went forward with its various projects of modernization and industrialization, several mines were dug and factories built in the mineral-rich tribal belt of Chota Nagpur. The Adivasis were the main sufferers. Though the displaced tribal people were promised compensation for their land and assured jobs in the factories, the promises were rarely kept. With increasing awareness, the tribal people have started fighting back to protect their land. There were believed to be more than 15 million child laborers under the age of 14 in India. More than 50% of them work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for a measly amount of rupees 10 per day. They work in tea shops, factories making fireworks, all kinds of cottage industries. They work in the most appalling conditions. Health and India. Those of you who live in any of India's big cities would have been seen the growth of several super specialty hospitals, gleaming buildings made of glass and steel. Medical tourism, that is foreigners who come to India for medical treatment, has become a major earner of foreign exchange for the Indian government. Healthcare, which used to be service industry, has now become profit-driven industry. But what about the rest of India, the 85% who cannot afford to pay for their treatment? There is an increasing reluctance among doctors to serve in rural areas. As a result, many of the public health centers, PHCs, in the rural areas do not have doctors or nurses. India spends less than rupees 640 per capita on health. Compare this with what other countries spend. China around rupees 13,800, United Kingdom around rupees 1,20,000, and the USA spends around rupees 3 lakh per capita. The number of doctors and nurses are sorely inadequate to deal with the thousands of patients who crowd these hospitals. Operation theatres are ill-equipped, electricity is erratic, and there are no generators. In some government hospitals in Bihar, doctors have been known to do emergency operations with light provided by handheld torches. Summary. In many societies around the world, some sections of people have been marginalized. They include the slaves, the indigenous tribes, and so on. In India, the evil practice of untouchability and atrocities against the Dalits still goes unchecked despite the efforts taken by the government. The government has reserved certain percentage of jobs and seats in educations for the SCs, STs and other backward classes, OBCs. Still, many of them are a long way off from progress. Though the cities abound in modern hospitals, poor people cannot afford health facilities. They have to depend upon ill-equipped and overcrowded government hospitals. Though banned by law, child labor too persists, and often children are illegally employed in dangerous occupations. That is all in this topic. Learning is fun, so keep learning.